It's highly on video time, and in today's video, I'll go over the 10Q quarterly report for the second quarter of 2024. With the cash remaining, they have, and this is expressed in millions, they have a total of $248 million in cash remaining. And I know everyone says they have plenty of cash, but as time progresses and they don't make any sales, that cash pile will steadily decrease. Thankfully, a bulk of it is in short-term and long-term investments, namely treasury bonds and municipal bonds. Liabilities, accounts payable, they're paying people, we don't know who, $1 million in total. And I'm kind of doing some rounding here to make the numbers easier. Operating lease for the facilities in Ohio and Texas, that comes to about $1 million. They could be leasing other things we just don't know. Accrued expenses of $5.5 million. More operating lease liabilities, $5.6 million. Other liabilities, $0.4 million, and that's due to some economic incentive grant that they got, which I'll talk about later, for a total of $13.5 million in liabilities. Looking through the past 6 months, they've accrued or gained $6.5 million of interest on the cash pile that they're sitting on. But as they spend it, that interest income is going to decrease over time because they're burning through cash. And there are no sales to put in the income column. For expenses, research and development costs, 16.3, administrative cost, 12.9 million, and that includes flying Thomas Healy out to expos, probably flying executives up to the Ohio office. All that's part of the administration expense. Doing the required forms for the Security Exchange Commission, that also plays a part into it as well. The ERX wind down, $3.9 million. Now, also for income, I did not include selling the ERX components because that's only like a one-time kind of thing. And you get a net loss of approximately $26.6 million over the past 6 months. The time remaining with if we take the total cash remaining and subtract the net loss over the past 6 months, if those losses are constant, which is not a realistic case, they'll run out of cash in slightly over 4.5 years, putting a bankruptcy date of January 2029. So that gives them about 4 to about 5 years of runway. And that is shown with this blue line. But one thing I do know is the only constant is change. And if we're going to assume that they're going to ramp up production and increase the cash burn, let's say by 5 million every 6 months, we have the orange line that takes us to about sometime between April and the beginning of June of 2027 when they run out of money. And if they decide to burn even more cash, let's say $10 million every 6 months, that gives them an end bankruptcy date of about slightly before October 1st of 2026. And these are real things you have to keep in mind, because they weren't able to follow through with the ERX because the environment changed. The environment did not like, the trucking environment was not strong, and EVs were not cool. So they're trying with this energy generation thing. The accounts receivable they had at 0.373 million, and it seems like they kind of reserve some orders for, they have invoices, but they can't bill them out because that product doesn't exist yet. So it's almost like, okay, here's an invoice, you don't owe us any money yet because we have no product to give to you, but we're going to take that money that doesn't exist yet and create a accounts receivable account. That's just my kind of guess of what's happening here. But it says that at the end of June 30th, 2024, there were no accounts receivable due because there's no product to sell, which is a problem. Also in the 10Q, there is a mention of economic incentive agreement. They entered an agreement with the Cedar Park Economic Development Corporation, and that's based out in Cedar Park, Texas. That superseded the previous agreement where the company would receive cash grants up to 1.1 million, provided that they meet certain objectives. And they've received a total of 0.4 million, which will remain refundable and subject to these performance requirements, and are included with other liabilities as of June 30th, 2024. And under the agreement, the EDC has a right to file a security interest to all assets of the company. So if Hyln were to go bankrupt, they don't have to do any cleanup because the EDC will do the cleanup for them. There's mention of the Office of Naval Research again. It was listed in their previous one, and it still highlights that Hyln is a subcontractor on a contract with the Office of Naval Research. And then there are share buybacks. There are two new ones in April and May, and they bought a total of, it looks like about $2.75 million worth of Hyln stock during that time. And I had to go to the previous 10Q report to see what they did at the beginning of the year, and January was the bulk of, well, it was the start of the purchasing with about $3.35 million worth of Hyln shares. And in February, it was the lion's share with about $5 million of purchases. And what did this do to the stock price? It was trading at the beginning of 2024 of around 85 cents a share. And since they've decided to purchase shares for 4 months, it basically bumped the price up to $1.36 a share. So they've managed, instead of spending money to develop the products, they chose to, I guess they deemed it important to pump the stock price above $1 so it can remain listed on the New York Stock Exchange. To them, I guess that's important. And one thing I know is that the executives' compensation, the bulk of the compensation is tied to shares of Hyln stock. And one way to keep that listed is to artificially inflate the stock price. I think right now it's around $2 a share because the Hyln hype train has started again with government contracts, all these exciting use cases, and now people are getting excited, and it's going up higher and higher in price. And keep in mind that there are no sales. There are non-binding letters of intent. So that outcome remains to be foreseen, and that's a lot of risk. There's a note on the 10Q about share-based compensation. For the past 6 months, 1.1 million RSUs and options have been forfeited, and 2.4 million shares of Hyln stock have been awarded for stock-based compensation. And there's an interesting note that says of the restricted stock units granted in the first quarter of 2024, 2.7 million units may vest between February 13th, 2025 and the end of 2026, contingent upon achieving underlying closing stock price thresholds. So they want to see the stock price at a certain amount between a certain time frame, and that's going from February 2025 through the end of 2026, which is right before this first gray line. And they want to see the stock price to go up. And one way that they can do that is to continue to buy shares. Another way to do that is to start selling Carno generators. Because right now with the share buybacks, they've traded money for time, and that's only going to work for so long because they're going to eventually run out of cash. And when that happens, someone is just going to pick apart the technology and use it for their company. But it looks like they want to see the stock price at a certain price, which they're not disclosing, for these RSUs, restricted stock units, to invest. I'm sure that's spread through the employees, the executives, and the directors of their board. That's it for this video, and of course, thanks for watching.